and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast for the final episode of our series as we conclude the 2024 season by reviewing Super Bowl 59, as well as going through our predictions from the start of the season. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis. Here with me, I've got two guests. First of all, we've got our resident Bears fan back with us in the show, is Luke Campbell. Luke, how are you?
I'm doing great, mate. How are you?
All good. Yeah, the jet lag's finally, I think, gone. I went to watch Liverpool Everton at Goodison Park on Wednesday night, and I think that plus coming back from New Orleans, going straight to work. I think now I feel I was very tired in work earlier. Let's put it that way, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Just a complete lie-in, no alarms, no reason to get up, essentially. Looking forward to that a lot. And it was an amazing week, really. Of course, those of you who follow us on socials and YouTube would have seen all the content throughout the week. Such an amazing week, and I could go on to more, just how good that week was. Probably the best week of my life, I would say. From being around Radio Row, seeing star after star, going to a media party, to getting to interview so many big names: Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. That's just four of many players. Getting to speak to the Fox Sports team, getting to interview Terry Bradshaw, Michael Strahan, Julian Edelman, Peter Schrager. The whole week was just fantastic, and I hope anyone who's listened to the podcast, enjoyed the content, enjoyed what I brought out. We have got so much more to bring you. I've got an F.A. Abada interview coming out on TikTok and socials. Other ones include, I did a little blind ranking NFL stadiums with Smith-Schuster and Joe Tooney, and there's other videos, the press conference with Greg Olsen and the team from there. So there's so much more to come on the channel as well, so keep an eye out for that. But of course, someone who enjoyed the week probably a bit more than me is our Eagles fan, Steve McGuinness. Steve, how are you, and how are you feeling after the win on Sunday?
How do you think I'm feeling, Andy? I took Monday off. I must have watched it. So we were watching down at the bar. So we were there till 3:30, 4 o'clock. By the time I dropped everyone off, got back at 5. I don't recall falling asleep. I recall it was getting light when I fell asleep, but the amount of energy a Super Bowl win gives you is beyond anything you can explain. I mean, if that had been the Dolphins and they'd won, you wouldn't have slept that entire 24-hour period. The party would have been unbelievable. I went to work on Tuesday morning, and it still it doesn't go away. You think you get this kind of post-Super Bowl drop-off after you've had that 24 hours. It doesn't. It just feels better and better all the way through the week, especially when it comes to the socials and you're watching the team, go out there and party and celebrate, and you're getting to mock the Cowboys relentlessly. It's you can't ask for a better week.
Happy as well, Steve. I mean, obviously the exuberance, you trash North Douglas as an Eagles fan, just to trash the town just because you can.
Listen, they put the grease on the lamppost. I wasn't able to climb them. I'm getting on a bit. That's all it was. I did try to hijack a bus. It just, they weren't having it.
It wasn't having it, no, unfortunately.
No,
You've let the side down, Steve. Come on.
I don't know. Let's be entirely fair. When I got back, one of the first things I did was brought up the live streams from CBS and NBC of Broad Street to see what was going down there. And we held our own, I think. Yeah. It wasn't on the level of the first Super Bowl win where we literally just wrecked everything. But I mean, there were street signs getting taken down. There were people surfing on bus stops. It was messy, and it should be. At the end of the day, it's a Philly thing, and Philly celebrates a win like probably no other team. So
do you think that as well?
I think
sorry, carry on, Steve.
I asked the Cowboys fan, I says, how do you think the Cowboys would celebrate a win like that? And he was like, I don't know, I'm under 30. So,
Do you think as well, I think this applies to all American sports, that, you think about our football, like, English football, if you don't win the Premier League, you can win the Champions League, or you can win an FA Cup or a League Cup. I remember going through the heartbreak of, losing out that title to Man City, having all these points, and then a week later, 2 weeks later, we win the Champions League. And do you think the the fact that there's only one trophy you can win. Oh, of course, you can win a division title, you can win even a conference championship, but there's only really one trophy everyone aspires to win. And do you think in a league where it's not like our football game, where it is, you can just pump money at it and there's no sort of limits within reason? There is the salary cap is there for a reason. Players move on. Those teams won 3 in a row. It took 20 years to have a team win back to back, whereas we've seen football teams win 2 in a row, 3 in a row many times in multiple leagues. So I think, do you think that as well makes it mean more the fact that only one team can win it? It is such a competitive field. 32 teams are competing for it, and all the kinds of players move on all the time. Salary cap. Yeah, do you think because to win it like that, and especially being just your second in history, it just makes it that extra bit special?
I think with the NFL, I think with the Super Bowl, winning it more than once it's an incredible achievement. Winning, I mean, I don't take anything away from the Chiefs. The Chiefs won it twice in a row, and the fact that they were going for 3-peat and it's not been done since 1950 that tells you how difficult that is, and that is a testament to the draft system, making sure that the worst teams get the best talent, so that in theory you are bringing up the worst teams to the same level as the better teams every year. There's a reason you use the phrase any given Sunday. You just need 1 or 2 players out of 53 to just not show up on a Sunday and you lose a game. And it's not like in the Premier League where you have like 38 games, you have cup games, etc. It's like you have 17 games a season, right? And you've got to win 75% of them realistically to make it to the playoffs, right? Against other teams who they're in that exact same boat. And some of them have better players, some of them have better coaching. I want to say that we had the best team on both sides this year. And to be fair, the stats kind of bear that out. I think with the exception of maybe the Bengals, I don't think there were many teams better offensively than us this year. Certainly in terms of numbers, there was no team even close to us defensively this year. I think the Lions would have been there if Hutchinson hadn't got injured so early. But apart from that, this was one where the best team statistically in every manner won the Super Bowl, which doesn't happen very often. You usually get that kind of that shock team that kind of knocks someone out here and there. Washington knocking out the Lions was what did that this year. But it's just, and it's the fact that the season is so short. It's like a 3.5, 4 month season, and then it's gone for 8 months. Whereas Premier League, other sports, other leagues, it's year round. I know I've seen the arguments regarding FIFA adding tournaments left, right, and centre, UEFA adding tournaments left, right, and centre, players not getting a break. NFL players get like 7 months a season where they're just not playing football. They're just going off and doing their thing. So, yeah, it's so compressed, it's so intense, and it's so high stakes in every single game. And I think that's why the NFL is more – I think that's why winning a Super Bowl feels so much better, so much more important to fans of each team.
Now, if you haven't guessed already, the Eagles did win the Super Bowl. They won it by 40 points to 22 in what was, let's not face it, not a great game. Luke, the word.
Speak for yourself.
you know what? I was thinking, like, everyone moans about. There's a lot of comparisons with Liverpool and the Eagles. I'm bringing up Liverpool again here, but you think about 2005 Liverpool Champions League final, one of the best the best Champions League final ever. Liverpool Milan 3-3. You think about the best Super Bowl I've ever watched was the Eagles Patriots with the Philly special, and then you flip forward to we won the Champions League 2019, one of the worst finals in my lifetime, and I have to say this probably was one of the worst Super Bowls in my lifetime in my 14 years. And there's a lot of comparisons, and I think, but equally, like yourself, Steve, I just don't care. I don't care that Liverpool won the most boring Champions League final of all time. I do not care one bit because I'd rather that than have a great game and lose. So,
shout out to a friend of ours called Chris, who's a Broncos fan, right? The last time you had a proper blowout in a Super Bowl was when the Broncos got turned over by the Seahawks. Yeah. And I remember going to watch that game, and we were all sat there and we were all watching around, and it was like at halftime we were like, well, this game's over. So we just went back to partying, right? Yeah. But the Super Bowl it's I think we've been spoiled by the fact there's been so many great, close, high-scoring games. It was due a blowout. I'll be honest, even at 24-0 at halftime, I didn't think we had it won. When that Cooper DeJean pick six went in, I was like, maybe we're there. But it was only when we went 34-0 up, I was like, right, just get the drinks in at the bar, get some food out. I don't need to watch this game. This is done.
Yeah, and I think I was saying this to my friends at the time. I was with. Shout out to the franchise tag boys in Gareth, who's also an Eagles fan, and Sky and Freddie, who've been on the show both throughout the last few years. And, I was saying, look, literally, this first drive is so important for the Chiefs. But if they can get shut out on third down against the Eagles, have the ball back and score on their first drive, you think, oh, this could be possible. But I think as soon as the Chiefs didn't score on their first drive and the Eagles, as you said, Steve, went 34-0 up, I think that's the point where I think I certainly realised, that the game is done. But Luke, you obviously watched as a neutral. Maybe you were cheering on for the Eagles because of Steve. But what was your take on the game? Where do you rank it amongst the worst Super Bowls? Because I look at Broncos Seahawks, the worst I've watched, but there's loads of ones back in the 80s with like the Buffalo Bills and the Cowboys, and you think about you can even argue Chiefs back then was pretty disappointing with the whole Brady Mahomes thing. But yeah, where do you think this Super Bowl? Because it wasn't a great game, but equally, there probably have been worse ones as well over the years.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly wasn't the best one of recent times. But what I did think was it was a defensive masterclass from the Eagles. I mean, it really, really was. The scheme that they put together really stopped them in their tracks. I think they knew that Kansas couldn't really run the ball at all, and so it was interesting that they brought pressure with only 4 of them all the time, and they still sacked them, a lot, and really cut off any of the opportunities for them to get rid of the ball, and that was the story of the game. So it was really, really interesting from that side of things. I don't think it was a classic. It certainly wasn't as good as the game I was at a couple of years ago, which was really quite something. And sorry, Steve, that was probably not so good for yourself, but that was pretty epic. And I don't think it will go down as a classic in terms of the game itself. But I think if you're a bit of a purist, I think it'll go down as a bit of a classic in terms of how to shut down Mahomes and stop Andy Reid from doing his thing. So that's
the thing that got me very much about the game was defensively. I mean, if you go back to the last time that Mahomes got stopped in the Super Bowl, now what the Chiefs had when they played the Bucs, and the Bucs defense just completely overwhelmed them, was they had Mahomes doing everything: scrambling, running, passing. Yeah. He was an outstanding player on the night, and he was let down by supporting cast. This time round, Mahomes he does not look the same player he was 2 years ago. It's like he's settled down, he's slowed a little. He's trying to be a little bit more careful and clever in his passes because he wants to kind of keep he doesn't want to throw those picks. But at the same time, when you said it there, Luke, when you can get so much pressure with the front 4, and that gives you so many more men in coverage.
Yeah,
I don't care if you're Tom Brady. It says you are not getting that ball to your receivers because the field is just too narrow.
Exactly.
Too well covered. I think that the 2 times when he really got loose was when he just looked at it and he went, fuck it. And he just launched it downfield. And it was like, let's see if Xavier Worthy can just outpace the cornerback. That was it. That was the only 2 times he really kind of nailed it. The rest of it, I mean, Kelsey was non-existent. We've all seen the footage of Kelsey's body language, especially on that scrambling play. The team just didn't want it. It was almost like they just came in thinking, we've done this twice before. The 3-peat is no problem. It's super easy. And, I think that Kansas team has got a lot of soul searching to do in the off season, and very possibly a rebuild on their hands.
I don't think you can ever write off the rebuild. I think as long as Andy Reid and Mahomes there, I think you can always count on it because, you think about the old Patriots teams, how many times they lost Super Bowls and they go, it's the end of the dynasty. A year later, what happens? They go out and win a Super Bowl or at least make one. And I think you think about, how everyone thought when they lost Tyreek Hill. And everyone said, oh, there goes dynasty. Yeah. What happened after that? 3 Super Bowl appearances in a row, two wins. We're 1 game away from making NFL history. And I think, the coaching staff you got there, I think, if Kelsey was to leave, I think you could easily look at, someone like Noah Gray or Justin Watson could do just as good as a job. Probably not as good, but I think Mahomes just make these players, because I know obviously this season probably wasn't his best season despite the record. But I think what he's proved is that he can lose some top players and he can have players. Kadarius Toney, had a massive part of the play in 1 Super Bowls, had done nothing before and after that. And I think as long as them 2 stay, I think they'll be fine. I know there's a lot of players that are going to be probably leaving in the off season as a big sort of salary cap thing. And I think whilst maybe not next season, but I think certainly you look at it maybe in 5 years' time, I think they'd have won at least 1 Super Bowl, maybe 2.
I think the interesting thing with sorry, look.
I was just going to say, you're talking about how Mahomes looked bad, but that's what a bad offensive line does to you. I mean, I know this is a Bears fan, right? You know, if you're a quarterback and you're scared of getting dumped in your ass half the time, you're going to be either getting rid of the ball or you're going to be careful to try and avoid picks and stuff. But you're certainly not going to be playing like yourself. And the offensive line was utterly dreadful. And I think that was the big difference, really. They couldn't have protected, anything really, the way they played. And it was appalling, actually. It was really embarrassing for them. And we'll probably sign all their offensive linemen in free agency, clearly, just to keep up that badness. But, it was terrible. Sorry, Steve, but that was just the point I wanted to make earlier. I think a bad offensive line can make your team look terrible.
I think with terms of their offensive line, I don't think it was as bad as you make out. I mean, the way the Eagles front four got through is the same way the Eagles front four has been getting through against every team all season. This was a talent and a scheme thing. Vic Fangio he just has those guys so well organized and so well drilled. Yeah. You could put him up against arguably the best offensive line in football, which he didn't get a chance to play against because the Ravens lost in the playoffs. But I think that team was capable of beating any offensive line in this league. And I think the best thing about it for me personally is that in that offensive line, there are five guys. Sorry, that defense, there are still 4 or 5 guys on rookie contracts in their first and second and third year, right? Yeah. So we don't have to worry about the cap to pay those guys. Okay. Yeah. We had a couple of guys, like Brandon Graham's retiring. Man, you know what? Go with my blessing. The guy has given so much to the team. And there'll be a few kind of people who think they deserve a new contract. We'll move on in the summer. Mm. That's just the nature of the game. But I think that unit, if you can keep the core of it together for 2-3 more seasons, we are going to be a problem. And I don't think that's our last Super Bowl appearance for the next couple of years. I mean, that's our third Super Bowl appearance in 7 years. We've lost an NFC Championship game. We've lost in the playoffs. This Eagles team, the way Howie Roseman organizes, picks up players, the schemes that get put in, Sirianni as a coach, there's absolutely no reason that they can't go, if not back-to-back, at least, make a deep playoff run again next year.
I agree. I think there's obviously the whole infamous Super Bowl hangover. It's often a team who either wins it or loses it that does have a bad year. And it takes a few injuries here and there, and that can happen. So I think, but I think certainly, again, me and you talked about a lot of times, Steve, is Harry Roseman, the good job he's done. I mean, to find these guys, I mean, the fact that, we made the most of, in a way, Jalen Carter's off the field stuff, because there's no way he'd have been there at 10 if that hadn't happened. So you got him. And you think about other players like being able to get DeJean and Quinton Mitchell. It speaks as much about his drafting scout as it does the strength, the weakness of most other teams, because the fact that no one picked them up and thought of them, especially Quinton Mitchell going in there was so Cupid DeJean going in the second round. I think, no, it's surprising how he got so far down there. And even people like Zach Bourne, a guy that didn't do much in New Orleans, was just a squad guy, comes in and has one of his best season by a mile, but also one of the best seasons amongst the team, and had a big part to play in the Super Bowl. Got to Mahomes, and I think again it goes down to, you think about the Jags having 2 first overall picks in 3 years, or was it back to back? And they've not done much really since that. So I think it just goes to show that it's as much about what you do as your draft picks as well as where you are. And I think that people like Harry Roseman and what he's doing just defeats the point of the tank, because he's proved that you don't need to be a bad team to rebuild, and he's just proved that massively. I mean, Saquon Barkley is obviously the big one. I know he didn't have his best game in the Super Bowl, but most yards across playoffs and regular season alone. I mean, to get him, and for not that much when you think about it, really, it's a credit to the whole organisation, and I think they massively deserve it. I was really.
Thanks, Giants.
What was that?
I said, thanks, Giants.
I mean, that they must be. I mean, I saw some stat they've had in the last 5 years. The first rounder they've picked to win a Super Bowl. I think it was Kadarius Toney 2 years in a row. There was OBJ the year before that, and I think Jason Pierre-Paul, albeit end of his career, won it with the Bucks the year before that. So, yeah, the Giants fans must be looking at that, especially Barkley, someone that they let go so cheaply, which is a massive regret because what he's done, the season he's had, arguably the best season I've seen from running back ever. I mean, you could argue McCaffrey's season when he had 1,000 receiving yards, 1,000 rushing yards was probably up there as well. Maybe a season with the Niners last year, maybe one of Denny Henry's years. But yeah, what a season he's had, and it's a huge credit to everyone involved. I'm glad for him that he's finally got his ring.
Yep, absolutely.
So I want to go through some quick stats that I found that they did cover during the game. So I'm repeating myself from the Fox coverage, but they gave out a few nuggets along the way. So first of all, Cooper the Gene, of course, scored the amazing pick six. He's the second player of all time to have a touchdown on his birthday in an NFL title game. The last time coming was Steve Van Buren in the 1947 NFL Championship. Other stats that they came across the screen, that they had a 34-point lead in the game. It was the largest lead in a Super Bowl since Super Bowl. My 48. My Roman numerals aren't great here. The Seahawks Broncos game, and there was one more stat I found in general. There was 1 point in the game fairly late on where the Eagles had 104 rushing yards and the Chiefs had 7. Looking further into the stats of the game in total, looking at that once I get it loaded up, I seem to have lost a page. Here we go. So in total, Jalen Hurts had 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, only 4 or 5 misplaced passes, incomplete passes. Jalen Hurts was the lead rusher as well with 72 yards and 1 touchdown. Barkley only 57. So Steve Spagnuolo keeps up the record that he had. He's never allowed a 100-yard rusher whilst with the Chiefs. Devontae Smith had a touchdown, as did A.J. Brown. Smith had 69 yards. Brown had 43 yards. And then looking at the defensive stats, Zach Bourne, 1 interception. Cooper the Gene, of course, interception and touchdown. There was in total 2 sacks from Williams. There's 2.5 sacks from Josh Sweat. Also, Jordan Davis getting involved, as well as Hunt. Moving on to the Chiefs, amazingly, Mahomes had more yards than Hurts, but we all know that was garbage time yards. He had 257 yards. One of the best ones I've ever seen from a losing team. And that touchdown towards David Worthy at the end of the game was, for me, one of the best throws I've seen in any Super Bowl. Amazing throw. And credit to Hurts for his throw to, I think it was Devontae Smith earlier in the game. He had 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Mahomes, this is the key stat because David Worthy had 157 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, the most of any rookie in a Super Bowl. And then if you look at that elsewhere, I mean, Kelsey had 39 receiving yards, but the most, I think, damning one, really, I think we touched on it earlier, was their leading rusher was Mahomes with 25 yards for 4 carries. They only had 9 rushing attempts the whole game. Obviously, we all know why that is because they were behind by loads and they had to try and make it up somehow. But yeah, I mean, there's only 1 sack in the game. Quick question: do you know who that was? So there was 2 players that got sacks. George Karlaftis and can you name the other one?
Oh, I can't remember actually.
What? Who sacked the 2 players who sacked
Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
This may have come with Kenny Pickett came into the field. It doesn't say when that sack was. My memory's debated Sunday.
No, I would have thought Chris Jones, but no.
No, of course he had the injury, so it must have been when he was on the field. But it is a guy, and I'm going to do a quick plug because I did interview him across the week, so do check out on socials. It's Drew Tranquil was the other guy to get a sack from a Hurts, I should say.
That stat you mentioned there about rushing yards, that's a really good one because the whole thing before the game was that the Chiefs D clearly keyed on making sure that Barkley couldn't get out there and run because they'd identified that if we do that, the Eagles can't throw the ball. That's the problem when you have a defense that becomes really one-dimensional. You know, the Chiefs just tried to narrow the field and stop Barkley so much that when it actually did come time to go deep, you know, they were just getting absolutely trounced every time. That catch by Jahan Dotson to set up the push, would that have come had the Chiefs kind of had a more balanced defense? Probably not. I think the coverage would have been better. So yeah, it's one of those, when you key your defense too tightly towards one particular style of play, it's gonna hurt you.
I mean, the Chiefs. I mean, they're 15-2, but do you think a part of this sort of game? I think underlying the strengths of the Eagles, but I think the fact that you look at how the season went, they almost lost to the Broncos with that block kick. They should have lost to the Raiders. They narrowly beat the Panthers. There's a lot of games against bad teams that they actually, looking back at it now, they actually could have easily lost. And I think this game proved, I think that, as well as the Eagles being very good, that the Chiefs.
They reminded me of? They reminded me of the I think it was the 2021-22 Vikings. Remember when they just like steamrolled everyone and got to the playoffs? But it was like based on one score games. That's what the Chiefs were this year. Everything was like a one-score game. They scored more than 30 points once in 17 games. That tells you a lot about that team.
And the three teams that also had that stat, I believe, were the Raiders, the Giants, and the Browns. I could be wrong on that. They were three bad teams anyway. I know they were. I think the Giants were definitely involved, but and it actually reminded me a lot of the Panthers against Broncos Super Bowl, where it was a Panthers team that had an amazing season, but it just proved that whole stat that offense wins games and defense wins championship, because what we saw, I think, was very similar to that Broncos defensive performance we saw. And I think it will go down as one of we talked about it earlier, but one of the best ever defensive performances in the Super Bowl. I think it will be remembered for that. Thoughts on the halftime show? I mean, we're going off topic, off the NFL, but I'm not really the biggest fan. I know like 5 songs by Kendrick Lamar. I thought it was fine. It was good. But obviously, you are probably of a different era to me. But what was your take on the halftime show?
I'll let Luke take this one because obviously I'm a big Kendrick Lamar fan. So I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to let Luke give me his opinion on this because it's not really his genre.
Yeah, I mean, I can take him or leave him, but I actually thought it was all right, to be honest with you. I quite enjoyed it. It was, it's a bit like anything else. I mean, the halftime shows are kind of halftime shows. If you're in the UK, you're desperately trying not to fall asleep, if you're like me, because I was knackered by that point. But I was also working as well, so I sort of took a little break to watch the halftime show and then went back to it again. So, but yeah, no, I thought it was good. Liked it, and I thought, like I said, overall, I felt like the star quality was missing a little bit, because normally you see lots and lots of cameos coming in, and it was a little bit thin on the ground this time, but still pretty good.
Yeah, I think we saw Serena Williams, Samuel L. Jackson, and I did enjoy the bit where he had all the dancers were sort of like the American flag. I thought that was really cool, really powerful, but I think, for me personally, I'd like to see a bit more of indie rock going on. I think it's actually, I was looking at, I want to do a TikTok on this as well, but there's a trend going around, I found, about Super Bowl since 2000. You look at the genres that have been playing. So from 2000, you had Phil Collins, Aerosmith, U2, then Shania Twain, we had P. Diddy, Jesus, a year later, Paul McCartney, Rolling Stones, Prince, Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen, The Who. Yep. And that's quite a regular theme of like rock. And then you go on to the next few halftimes. You had the Black Eyed Peas, you had Madonna, Beyonce, Bruno Mars, Katy Perry, Coldplay, Lady Gaga, Justin Timberlake, Maroon 5. I mean, you got there Shakira, Jennifer Lopez, just a theme of just pop artists. But now you've had The Weeknd, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Rihanna, Usher, Kendrick Lamar. I've noticed a trend that it's they went through a period of rock, then they've gone through a period of pop, and then they're sort of mixing the rap and the pop sort of together. So I don't know where they go from here. Maybe we'll see some dubstep coming up in the next few years, or maybe some metallic.
I think what you're going to see is whatever the biggest artist of next year is, that's who will get asked. We'll go and do it. And I think it's a case of when they were doing it in the early 2000s, they wanted like star power, as in like the big mega bands. Those kind of bands don't really exist anymore. What you get now, especially with the kind of TikTok and that era, is you get bands who get big very, very quickly, not necessarily with like, years and years behind them. I mean, in the case of Kendrick's been doing this for a long time, but Bruno Mars had been in the pop business for like 3 years, but got big because of the TikTok sensation regarding a lot of songs. Yeah. So you'll see that now, and I don't know who will do it next year. Don't know what we rap again. I think you're right; they might move on. With the appointment of the orange-faced troll, you might well see that it moves to a very white or country or pop, very safe artist next year.
Well,
because they like to maintain their status, or their tax-exempt status.
Well, there's one name I think it's going to be. I think with how I think there's been allegations of maybe the Chiefs winning games because of the referees and maybe a certain individual being able to be there at the Super Bowl, make the money. I think if the Chiefs aren't involved, I know they have to kind of announce it months in advance. I think you mentioned country, pop, big music stars. I mean, Taylor Swift's going to be on there at some point. It's going to be at some point. I think, obviously she is obviously dating Chiefs, I don't know, if they start the season off, I don't know, 1-5 or something like that, I think we'll see the announcement. I think she's set for it at some point. She's the biggest star. She'd bring money in. I think it would be sort of a way to bring money in without having the whole good allegations. If they just have, I don't know. I think for me, I think Post Malone's probably going to be someone due a Super Bowl in the next few years.
There's an immediate turn off at halftime.
So you would or wouldn't go to halftime?
I'd literally, that would be my piss break. I'd be like, nope, done, off.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Oh God, no.
But I do think with the rise of country music,
I'd rather watch Jelly Roll.
Really? I'm not on him. I do think that with the rise of country music, I think we could see that trend, like Luke Combs or Morgan Wallen. I think that might be where we go. I think
I'll make a prediction here, and it's based on the fact that who's in the Oval Office. Yeah. Next year will be some kind of medley that involves Kid Rock.
Interesting.
I'm putting that one out here now. It will be a kind of very MAGA-friendly rock country lineup next season.
Oh my gosh.
Interesting. I mean, it's the first president in history to attend the Super Bowl whilst in charge. I'm not going to politics because I'm not an expert and I don't want to get this podcast in trouble. So we've done the game. And I think I want to touch a little bit on the season overall. I mean, Luke, Steve, you all know, how the team season's gone. We all know your views on that. But Luke, the Bears, of course, we all met up and watched the Bears. I actually saw you guys from my seat in the press box. So I actually got a lot of that game. I got to witness the Luke Campbell mid-game, during game reactions. That was quite fun. But. I mean, not the season anyone thought we'd have. What was the season overall? Because it wasn't at all what we all thought.
Oh, I didn't expect to see him dancing in his seat.
Top off.
Terrible coaching decisions. That was basically it. I mean, honestly, some of the most head-scratchingly stupid and inane coaching decisions I've ever seen in my entire life. And that is saying something because I've seen a lot of stupid stuff. But honestly, some of the stuff you just couldn't make up this year. I mean, it does give you hope that at least we were in a position to win some of these games, particularly against the Lions and stuff. But then we shot ourselves in the foot. And at least we broke our hoodoo over the Packers as well. So at least that was a good thing. But overall, there was just some really stupid decisions. And Eberflus is a great DC, but he's not a head coach. And I think, even I was pretty tolerant of him, but after some of the debacles, I was calling for his head because I was just fed up with it. So I think I'm pretty hopeful the new sort of combination of head coach and OC and DC will make a huge difference this year. I think you're going to see an uptick in production in the offense. I'm hopeful that the right decisions will be made in the draft this year, but dear, I expected so much and got so little back. So little.
Yeah, I do think that Thanksgiving game obviously was the killer because he went the next day, but that played the time management at the end, the clock management. I think.
Oh my gosh!
It's. I think in all my years being a fan, I mean, recency bias is a thing, but I do believe that's one of the worst pieces of evidence of clock management I've seen. Maybe apart from the Russell Wilson against the Seahawks in week 1 of the season in 2022, but. I think that was the end of it for me. I mean, we talked about it all off season, is that no quarterbacks had a better situation than Williams to go into the season with. The team had 7 wins to get people like John Day Swift in and Keenan Allen and the players are already there. DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and the fact that he didn't really improve on that and they got worse. I think, has a lot to do with Eberflus and just, I think Akilova has to do with the people upstairs as well and that sort of stuff. But overall, I just think that, I actually want to obviously, yourself, Lucas, I want to pay a quick tribute to Virginia Hallis. She obviously passed away recently at the age of 102. So that was a very good, a good life she had there. And obviously it's, a shame that she has passed away, but, there for a lot of Bears history.
Yeah, definitely. The final thought I had on the Bears was that I think the thing that galled me most about everything that happened was the fact that Eberflus doubled down on his decisions after the game. Instead of putting his hand up and going, do you know what? I got that wrong. I thought, he actually doubled down on all these terrible decisions. And that was the thing that I think enraged every Bears fan across the country. And I was surprised they never got fired sooner, in all honesty. But that's the way it goes. But Virginia, it's a shame she's gone. And it's a shame she had to see it in a terrible season like this as well. But, that's the way it goes, I suppose.
She lived to 102 years and she never saw the Vikings win a Super Bowl.
I'm saying nothing. I've seen more Chiefs Super Bowl appearances than I've seen Dolphins playoff appearances. So I'm not. No, I've seen more Chiefs Super Bowl wins than Dolphins playoff appearances. Sorry, the same amount. 3 Chiefs Super Bowl wins, 3 playoff appearances for the Dolphins. I think
that's one thing I do want to go back to. What you said earlier about Super Bowl. Why do Super Bowl wins mean so much to certain franchises? It was the fact that when we won that first one, like in 2018, it was just like when you've had 45 years of trying to win and you get that first one, it's an incredibly special feeling. You're a Liverpool fan. You sat through the Man United eras, right? And when you finally won that title, right, you can appreciate how good that felt. Yeah, and that's multiply that by 100, and that's how the city of Philadelphia felt after we won that first one. And this is why I think the celebrations were great, but a little bit more muted for the second one, because now there's a degree of expectation.
I mean, it's one of the things where Liverpool fan, and again I'm being of Liverpool again here, but Liverpool fan since I believe it was 2002. It was 99. Ironically, was the year they won the treble. But I think for a few years I never really knew what was going on. My dad just made sure I didn't go down my brother's route and just made sure, basically forced on me. And I had the Champions League win, I had the FA Cup win, and a Champions League final a year later. But for a lot of years it was awful. And you think about like players like like Ryan Babel and Paul Konchesky and loads of players I've seen over the years that had to sort of Gerrard had to play with that weren't that great, and then finally the time comes when you win one, and it wasn't, obviously there was no fans in the stadium, but I watch at home regardless. So for me, watching on the sofa, I would have been in the same position, but it was amazing for me watching it with my dad. It was just an amazing experience, and you had some bad quarterback play in the past, Sam Bradford and a lot of bad years, Chip Kelly years, and then you finally got that ring, and it just means more. I think that we talk about players talk about they'd rather win. We talk Stephen Gerrard talk about saying he'd rather win 5 trophies with Liverpool than win 15, 20 with another team. I think for the Eagles, I think it means more to them because you think about how maybe the Patriots fans felt after the 6th or the 5th Super Bowl. Maybe they felt a bit like, oh, this is what we expect. Whereas for the Eagles, to win that first one, even the second one, their first since that in 7 years, it does mean more, I think. And that, I think, in a way, even though I would have liked to be there for NFL history, see the Chiefs win it, I'm also glad for the Eagles because it's something fresh for the neutral. And, it just means that, it's great for City. And, it just means more, I think, to the fans if the Eagles won. Maybe the Chiefs, because they would have got the 3-peat. But overall, I think, Eagles fans definitely would have cherished this one, I'm sure. Now, Luke, finally on the Bears. I mean, Ben Johnson's come in, Lions defensive coordinator. Maybe some Lion fans aren't too happy with him because he's gone to a rival. A lot of offensive coordinator sort of buzz about him. Obviously, he won assistant coach of the year. But we've seen people before, good coordinators, go to NFL head coaching jobs. They don't succeed. How are you feeling about the appointment?
Really, really positive. He's who I wanted in the first place. As soon as we were interviewing, and I was taking all the the signs, that we were taking our time to appoint someone as positive, that we were waiting for him to be available. I think there was a lot of misdirection in terms of how many people they interviewed. But I was a little bit worried we weren't going to get him. Let's put it that way, because I felt like that maybe someone like the Raiders might put in a bit of a strong, pull for him. But it seems as if he wanted the job from the off. So I'm very, very excited. I think he's going to be good, actually. So I'm really, really happy about it. Very optimistic. But it's the hope that kills you. So hey.
Every year. I mean, Dolphins. I mean, go to my thoughts. I mean, talk about the hope that kills you. I mean, this was the hope that kills you. I mean, we've been bad in years gone by, but most years I still expected to start the season. But I was expecting, we'll go on to a little bit, but I was expecting a good season from us. You'll see in our predictions. I think a lot of fans, we thought it would be the year where we finally win a division for the first time since 2008. We'd win our first playoff game since 2000. We did well towards the end. Now we'll give the team some credit for that, because we managed to make it from being 2-6 to 8-9. We had an amazing run, and I want to give Anthony Weaver a little bit of credit, because the defense definitely improved late on, but it was just too little, too late. And I think my overall feeling was, what the bleep was that? I think from a team that Tyreek Hill was not the same player, had a little hissy fit, and he quit on the team basically. And I know he's now apologised, but I don't want him back. If you quit on the team, then I don't think you should be playing for our franchise.
Here's a question, Andy. Do you think you would be in a better position now if you'd stayed with Brian Flores?
Absolutely. I've said this the whole time. I like McDaniel. He's a great guy, but he's made the playoffs twice. Granted, Flores never made the playoffs, and the offense wasn't as good when he was there. But he didn't have Tyreek Hill. He had Waddle for one season. He had Devontae Parker as his main receiver for 2 years. Didn't have Jaden Phillips. Didn't have Bradley Chubb. Didn't have Jalen Ramsey. And he got us 2 winning seasons, and we didn't make the playoffs. And yeah, obviously, we know what's going on off the field. There's been a lot of, obviously, fell out with the owners and all that kind of stuff. But I guarantee you, if he was there, our head coach, with the same team we have now, or particularly maybe last year and the year before that, we'd have won at least a playoff game. I can guarantee we'd have won a playoff game. But who cares they don't get on? Who cares that two didn't go on with Flores? Did Brady get on with Belichick? I don't think so. Look how that turned out. So for me, I think personally, and the fact that he wanted Jordan Love, I know it probably would have been a reach 6th overall, but Jordan Love has proved to be a better quarterback than Tua. I mean, I don't mind Tua. I don't like Tua, but I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think there's better quarterbacks out there. I view him the same as like a Kirk Cousins and a Dak Prescott. Good in the regular season, can't get done when it matters in the postseason. And I want to give Freddie a shout out. I called it the Kirk Cousins trap, but he said about it as Mike Tomlin trap. We're never going to be bad enough to get a first overall pick. We'll never be good enough to make us to win a Super Bowl or even make one. I think we're constantly going to be on these 8 and 9 win seasons, 10 win seasons, make the playoffs, lose in the first round, or just miss out on the playoffs. And I think until we've seen unless you have some absolute gem, we got a 13th overall pick this year. We could go out and find some absolute stud offensive tackle. I think Calvin Banks from Texas is the guy. I think I'm eyeing up, but I don't know enough. But I don't watch enough college football to really have an opinion on that, who we should take. But I think if we can get a good offensive tackle, our problems could be solved. But who knows? It's been 14 years of pain in my life being a Dolphins fan, and I don't think that's going to change next season. But I think the way we ended the season with everyone back healthy, I think Tua wins you games. I think we may even make the playoff, but I think the most we'll get is one playoff win, if that. So, yeah, I think long off season ahead. A lot can change. Who knows? But, yeah, for me, not quite the season that I envisage. And speaking of, let's head to our predictions from the start of the season. Now, I
think I know where this one's going.
You never know. But we've all won one in the past. We've all won each. So I think Steve won the first year, then I won it in 2022 season, and then Luke won it in the 2023 season. Now, again, I've gone for a point system. So when it comes to the division winners, so that from 4 to 1 ranking divisions, it will be a case of you get 1 point per correct placement in your predictions for the divisions. Then when it comes to the first pick, I've gone for, if you were mostly saying it's from now on will be, if you bang on, it's 3 points. If you close, 1 point. If you're nowhere near, 0 points. I think things like the award winners, like comeback player of the year, rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, it comes down to if you were nominated, you get a point, and if you get all 3 points, if your person won the award. Some are a bit subjective, like teams that underwhelm, other things like, I think things like AFC champions, NFC champions, it's pretty clear cut. If they won the conference, 3 points. If they were in the conference championship, just 1 point. MVP, same again. If you were nominee, a point. If you won it all, 3 points. So yeah, let's kick off with the AFC East. Now with the AFC East, myself and Luke get 2 points. As we've said, the Dolphins, Bills, Jets and Pats are 1 to 4. And of course, the Jets and Pats did finish 3rd and 4th, where Steve did have the Bills finishing first, the Dolphins finishing second, and the Jets and the Pats. So he gets 4 points to start off the AFC. Heading on to the AFC North, it did finish as the Ravens, then the Steelers, then the Bengals and the Browns. Now, myself and Steve both went for the Ravens, Bengals, Steelers and Browns. And our wonderful. So we'll get 2 points for our Browns and Ravens predictions. And whereas Luke gets 1 point as he went for the Ravens, then Bengals, then Browns, and then Steelers. Moving on to the AFC South, this did finish as the Texans, then the Colts, and the Jags, and the Titans, which is what I exactly predicted. So I get 4 points, and Steve and Luke both get 2 points for correctly predicting Texans, then Jags, then Colts, and then Titans. Moving on to the AFC West, it ends up being the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Raiders as 1 to 4. Steve went for the Chiefs, then the Broncos, and the Raiders and the Chargers. Luke he gets 1 point. Luke went for the Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos ranking, as did I. So we both get 2 points there. Moving on to the NFC East. So the Eagles won the division with the Commanders second, the Cowboys third, and the Giants fourth. Now, we all went for the Eagles to win the division. We all went for the Giants to finish last, except for Luke, who went for the Commanders to finish fourth. And then we all went for the Cowboys finishing second. So I get 2 points, as does Steve, and Luke gets 1. Moving on to the NFC North, it finished as the Lions, Vikings, Packers, Bears. I went for the Lions, Packers, Bears, Vikings. So I get 1 point, as does Steve, who went for the same ranking. And Luke got 2 points, as he went for the Lions, Bears, Packers, Vikings, 1 to 4. Moving on to the NFC South, we all went for the Falcons to win the division. We all know the Bucs won it, with the Falcons finishing second, and the Panthers third, and the Saints fourth. Myself and Luke both get 0 points, as we all went for a Falcons, Bucs, Saints, Panthers 1 to 4. He gets 2 points, as he correctly predicted the Panthers third, the Saints fourth, but with the Falcons first and the Bucs second. Moving on to the NFC West, we all know what happened there. Niners finished bottom. No one thought that would happen. The Rams won it with the Seahawks second and the Cardinals third. So we all went for the Niners to win it. We all went for the Cardinals bottom, but I went for a Rams Seahawks 2 and 3, as did Steve, and Luke went for a Seahawks Rams. So that gives him 1 point, which means Steve got 0 points. Which means at the halfway stage of our prediction, I'm on 13 correct scores. Luke is on 11. Steve is on 14. Now, moving on to the one I had a bit of contention with, because first overall pick of the 2025 season. Now, no one went for the Titans. Myself and Luke went for the Patriots, and Steve went for the Giants. Now, Giants are third overall pick this year, and Patriots are fourth. But I thought they weren't second overall picks. I've given us all 0 points on that one.
The Giants threw it away on the very last game. It was like just all you had to do was lose, and you had the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen in recent years actually is, we've seen Lions finish second behind the Jags. They've got Aiden Hutchinson, Jags got Trayvon Walker. Stroud behind Bryce Young. Stroud's done better. You think about even this season, Jane Daniels being better than Taylor Williams, and I think there is I was
expecting Luke to react to that. Actually, I thought he would have had a stronger opinion. I just remember his passion at London game about this guy is the future. This guy is that man.
I had muted myself, and that's probably a good thing.
But yeah, I think what we have seen really is teams have managed to find success without maybe having the first overall pick. The Jags had, I know the Jets got Trevor Lawrence, so you got Zach Wilson, but the Jags got the first overall pick, and look what happened. They've not done that well with them. So I think it's all about how you do with the picks. But I think as well, being second may not be the worst thing, because if you don't want a quarterback, I think you can get someone like Travis Hunter. I think the Browns could go for him, and yeah, I do think that it's not all the end of the world that they got the third overall pick. And I think as well, they'll still get either Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward. I think they'll get Shadur Sanders. I think Cam will go first overall pick. So yeah, I think unless someone trades up, I think that's where we'll still see him get a quarterback, which is not the first choice. But moving on though to the rest of our predictions. So as I said before, myself and Stephen Luke all got 0 points for the first overall pick predictions. Now, when it comes to the wildcard predictions, there are some teams here that are in our predictions, but they won the division, so I'm not giving any points for that. So I went for a Bengals, Bills, Colts AFC wildcard spot. No one got in as a wildcard team there. Luke went for a Bengals, Bills, Browns. Again, Bills made it in, but they did it as a division winner. And then Steve went for a Dolphins, Bengals, and Jags playoff. Playoff 3 teams in the wildcard. Of course, no one there made the playoffs. Moving on though to the NFC, my 3 teams to make the divisions, the playoffs as the wildcard team were the Rams, Packers, and Bears. So I got 1 point for the Packers. Of course, Bears did make the playoffs, and the Rams made it as division winners. Luke went for a Bears, Packers, Bucks trio, so he gets 2 points there for the Packers and the Bucks. And then finally, Steve went for a Cowboys, Rams, Packers NFC trio, so he gets 1 point for the Packers. Now, comeback player of the year. Now, Luke gets 0 points as he went for Anthony Richardson. Steve gets 0 points as he went for TJ Watt. But I went for Joe Burrow, so I get 3 points there. Very happy with that prediction. Probably my best of the evening, I would say. Now, heading on to the surprise team. Now, 2 people did absolutely terribly. I went for the Colts. Terrible. Don't know where to start with that. Luke went for the Bears. Of course he did. But Steve went for the Vikings. I think he gets 3 points. So, they didn't win any playoff games, but I think no one expected them to have 14 wins, the most of any wildcard team in history. I don't think anyone expected that. So, fair play to Steve. He gets 3 points there. Now, most disappointing team. Oh my goodness! I've just realised your Vikings prediction was the most disappointing team, not the most surprising team. So, sorry, Steve, I have to take off 3 points there. I do apologise. I misread it. So I read it as surprise team was the Vikes and the one team was the Jaguars, but other way around. You've gone for the Jags.
Yeah, because I had the Jags making the playoffs and doing quite well.
Yeah. So the Vikings, sorry, Steve, that does make things interesting. So that is no points for any of us. Now, Defensive Rookie of the Year, we all get 0 points. We all went for Caleb Williams. Wasn't even a nominee. I'll get actually nominees up, actually. There were 5 nominees for the award. Of course, Jane Daniels won the award. But looking at the nominees, it was for Rookie of the Year, offensive-wise, it was Jane Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Bo Nix, Brock Bowers, and Brian Thomas. Now, Defensive Rookie of the Year, the nominees were Braden Frisk, Jared Verse, Cooper DeJean, Quinton Mitchell, and Trot Robinson. One of us got a correct winner, and one of us got a nominee. So Luke went for Terry and Arnold. I was really high on him. Bit of a bust. So 0 points there for Luke. But one person went for Quinton Mitchell. Of course, that was Steve. He gets a point. But I did predict Jared Verse would win the Rookie of the Year. So congrats to myself there. I get 3 points, and Steve gets 1.
I'd also like to thank Jared Verse for motivating the Eagles team to beat them in playoffs. I mean, if you're going to go and wind up a fan base and wind up a team, that's the way to do it. And to be fair, he had an outstanding game against us, but he still lost.
So next up is again another stinker. Well, actually the next 2 are stinkers. So the next 3 actually are all terrible predictions. So you've got Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and MVP. Now, one of them comes through Steve with an asterisk. I'll get onto that in a bit. But Offensive Player of the Year, I went for Christian McCaffrey, Luke went for Patrick Mahomes, and Steve went for Tyreek Hill. So no one gets a point there. None of them were even close to being Offensive Player of the Year. Now, Defensive Player of the Year, myself and Luke get 0 points again. We both went for Max Crosby. But Steve has 0 points with Aiden Hutchinson. But it's an asterisk because I think if he stayed healthy, he would have been at least a nominee, if not a winner. So I think I think if he not got injured, he may have, especially with the Lions' record, he may have won that award. So commiserations for that one, Steve. Now, MVP is another stinker. You can't blame Stephen Luke for going for Patrick Mahomes. I think that's a pretty safe pick. I think that's a pretty good pick to make. But he wasn't one of the nominees. It was Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, who ended up winning it, Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, and I've literally forgotten the fifth nominee. Jared Goff. Jared Goff was the fifth nominee. But mine was even more of a stinker. My MVP pick. Do you boys remember who it was? My MVP selection?
You probably went with Tua, didn't you?
Absolutely not. No.
No, go on. I'm curious. I don't remember this one.
I can't remember.
I compared this guy to two players, one of them being actually the guy who won MVP. So I should have gone for that guy. Anthony Richardson was my MVP.
Oh, brilliant.
What, you mean Mr. Tap Out? Mr. Quit on the field?
I thought he's like the next Cam Newton / Josh Allen, but no. It turns out
he's more like the next Jamarcus Russell.
Now, our AFC champions, I could have easily given us a point each because they were close to making the title game. All went for the Ravens to win the AFC. No one gets a point there. Now, NFC champions. Now, I went for the Packers. Again, 0 points there. Not even close. Well, made the playoffs, but didn't win a playoff game. Luke went for the Niners. Again, not a bad pick because, they made the Super Bowl the year before.
Yeah.
But obviously didn't make the playoff this year in a really bad injury hit year. And then finally, Steve went for the Eagles to win the NFC. He gets all 3 points. So, yeah, he had a good one there. And then finally, who we thought won the Super Bowl? We all got it wrong. I went for the Ravens. Luke went for the Niners. And Steve also went for the Ravens. Despite being an Eagles fan, he went against his team. I do remember that at the time. And, yeah, we all get 0 points there. So, scores. Now, quickly, I'm going to charge my laptop because it is low on battery to give you guys a little bit of suspense going into the who was won the predictions.
I could have sworn I said we were going to win the Super Bowl.
No, you did say
I might need to go back and look at that one again. I could have sworn I said we were going to win it.
If you, whether yourself or the listeners want to find out, there are graphics on the social media page. So if you go back far enough, you would find all the predictions were put on social. So. I mean, I thought it was Lamar Jackson's year. I thought that he was going to answer the critics like Peyton Manning did, like Steve Young did, like John Elway did, and finally win a playoff game. But still think next year he's got a chance. I think
he still should have won MVP.
See, you look at the stats for last year.
He shouldn't have won it last year. He should have won it this year.
Yeah, see, it's almost the wrong way around. Josh Allen should have won it last year. Lamar Jackson or Barkley should have won it this year. But I think maybe that was part of it. Maybe they thought, right, he got the wrong decision, therefore we're going to, give Allen the award. But I'm not against Allen. I think if you're voting after the championship games, the two NFC and AFC ones, I think you would have given it to Barkley because I think he had the best season overall. But if they're voting it at the end of the regular season, then I do think that I have no problem with Josh Allen winning it. If I'm honest, he had that game he had where he had that moment where he had the caught for touchdowns, threw for touchdown and ran for touchdown. I think Lamar Jackson had better stats, but I think Josh Allen, had was more of the guy. I think Ravens, you could look at it and go, like, you got Lamar Jackson and Henry both doing equally well. I know James Cook had the same touchdowns as Derrick Henry, but he had, I think, like almost 1,000 yards less than him. So I think Josh Allen was maybe more of the heartbeat of the offense, whereas maybe you could argue Lamar Jackson was just one of him and Henry just dominating. But I think they'll be in there again next year. Unless injuries become a factor, I do think that he'll win a Super Bowl in his career at some point. So here we go. Now, I mentioned before that I got the thing wrong. I thought Steve went for the Vikings to be the surprise team. That changes things massively when it comes to who wins the predictions. So in third place is Luke with 13, whereas in the end, with 19 points in second place is Steve, with myself with 20 in first place.
Oh, close.
I'm gutted by that. And I genuinely thought I predicted we were going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Well, that thing, I remember I picked both. I remember you picked the Eagles to win it. I remember the NFC. I remember you picked who was it? You remember you picked who was it? You said there was one other one I remembered in my head that you said, well, Steve's going to win this year then. But so he didn't win it. So there we are for another year of the NFL season.
Yeah. I'll be back.
Next year, it's all to come in the podcast. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow the podcast if you haven't already. And of course, thank you to everyone this season who's first to be on the show, like yourselves and all the other guests of our 32 teams. I can name them all, but we'll be here forever. And thank you for all who listened and kept listening, because without you guys, I wouldn't have been at the London games. I wouldn't have been certainly at the Super Bowl. So huge thank you to everyone who has listened, has shared, has commented on the video, took part in our giveaways. We got one more coming in the next few weeks. And yeah, just thank you to everyone who has been a part of the podcast this year. Once again, our annual month hiatus from now until March. We'll then bring you some draft stuff, maybe some, hopefully, interviews. We have got potentially a very special guest lined up on the podcast. We're just waiting for a few things to be cleared. Hopefully we should see potentially a Hall of Famer come on the show. But that is all in the works. Not confirmed yet, so keep an eye out for that. And we'll try and get some other interviews across the off-season as well as draft coverage, as well as free agency talk, all that jazz. But first of all, before we end the show, huge thank you to both Steve and Luke for coming on today.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us on, and congratulations for winning.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. I'm gutted that I've lost that. I genuinely thought I had it this year, but you know what,
Steve, to be honest,
I did. I had so much faith in my team to go right the way through, but obviously, if I just bottled it at the end, then I just, I'm gonna have to go back and look it over. But yeah, I'll take it as gospel now.
Well, the thing is, you may have lost, and I may have won, but just think about it. You didn't pick Richardson to win MVP. Just think about that.
That's right, and I'm still not a Cowboys fan, so that's good. Yeah.
There we are. That is the end of the show. This has been the Across the Pod end of season review and Super Bowl review. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for Luke and Steve for coming on the show today, or should I say for those viewers watching on YouTube, Mike Didka coming on the show today. And we'll see you guys next time for the new season. Take care.
Bye-bye.